This is the Kia EV2 standard range, and today it's time to test range, consumption, charging and cabin noise. Welcome to It's Only Electric. Let's start with some facts.
It's only electric.
This is currently the smallest EV in Kia's lineup, measuring 406 centimeters in total length with a wheelbase of 2.56 meters. The curb weight is 1,650 kilograms. It's riding on the smaller battery pack, LFP pack, with a gross capacity of 42.2 kilowatt hours and net capacity just above 40. With the charge port placed at the front right, we have a DC or fast charging capacity of 118 kilowatts on a 400 volt charger, 10 to 80% in 29 minutes according to Kia, and we're gonna test exactly that. When it comes to AC charging, home charging, 3-phase support, 11 kilowatts. It's driving on the front wheels only with a permanent magnet motor here at the front, putting out 147 horsepower or 108 kilowatts, 250 newton meters of torque, 0 to 100 in 8.5 seconds with a top speed of 161 kilometers per hour. The range with standard rims is 317 kilometers. This setup though, extra bigger rims, 18-inch, does have 307 kilometers. We're gonna start with two different range tests. One mixed cycle with an average speed of 93 kilometers per hour and one highway speed test in a constant speed of 120 kilometers per hour. I think it's time to start. I've just started a range and consumption test. This is a mixed cycle with an average speed of 93 kilometers per hour with speeds spanning from 50 all the way up to 110 kilometers per hour. It's more of an everyday scenario. I always drive the exact same stretch of road. I always stick to the speed limit. I always keep the AC to 20 degrees and auto, and I always put the drive mode into eco. That's the set of rules I always stay true to be able to create a comparable result. I'm in the mood of victory today. I'm gonna break records. I'm hoping to get the lowest score when it comes to consumption ever of my tests. I'm also aiming for beating the stated WLTP range. Let's see about that. But the conditions is perfect. Totally dry roads, no specific wind, 17 degrees outside. Whilst on the highway, let us try the driver assist function, the HDA 2.0. First issue, you need to take the glasses off because it won't activate with sunglasses on. I think the reason for that is the new camera. So the new camera does actually not see your eyes or recognize your eyes with glasses on. Probably because it's not a IR camera anymore. The older versions did have a IR camera on top of the steering wheel column. That's not the case anymore. This is a camera monitoring both passengers, or the driver and the passenger here at the front, for safety reasons. But they also seem to change the technology or the camera type. And that's a disadvantage in this case, because I really can't use the HDA driver aid systems with sunglasses on. That's a really big downside. So even if this is kind of an entry-level EV from Kia, it still comes with the HDA 2.0, which is really stable. It also comes with automatic lane change, or assisted lane change, so I only need to signal and it changes the lane for me as long as I hold the steering wheel. That's a neat feature for such a small car. So it does have better driving capabilities, self-driving capabilities, than the EV9, for instance. That's impressive. And as always, you control the driver aid systems to the left of the steering wheel. First off, you have the speed limit assist, that's a separate button. And you have the steering assist, That's also a separate button. You have the distance setting. That's the distance for the cars in front of you. You toggle the different distances in 4 steps. And you have the speed adjustment rocker just to the left. That's the way it adjusts, or where you manually can adjust your speed if you don't want to keep the actual speed limit. One nice thing is that the steering assist function, the HGA system, adapts to the changing speed limits. So if you get a higher speed, if the speed changes, it adapts to that, accelerates or decelerates depending on the need. The first check-in, I have passed 27 kilometers, 27.7 to be exact. Average consumption until now is 15.3 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. I think that's around the stated consumption according to WLTP. I think that we'll manage to go a bit lower. Let's see about that. A brief reminder, I'm doing a full review of this exact car with all the details you want. A lot of details that's not present in this video. So if you're interested in this EV2, then I really recommend you to watch that video. I put the link up here when it's available. One extremely neat feature with the driver assist function, if you check the driver assist menu, there is at the bottom something called offset. And that's a slider from -10 to +10 kilometers per hour, which means that when you activate the driver assist, the speed limit assist, it keeps to the speed limit with the add-on of the offset. So for instance, if you have 5 as an offset, it will drive 85 as the speed limit is 80. In this way, you can slightly disadhere to the speed limits. I mean, follow the flow of the traffic easier. So we're closing into the tricky parts and the halfway of this test. Average consumption 14.6 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, so slightly been going downwards. Here ahead we have some tricky roads, a bit more curvy. I have activated the driver assist, and as always I will see if it will manage to stay in the right lane. It's an S shape. Doesn't give me any warning, it doesn't slow down, it keeps the speed limit 70 kilometers per hour. It doesn't know its own limits. No, it did not. It just continues losing control, ending up in the wrong lane without any warning at all. Let's give it one more shot. We'll have another tricky part very soon. Okay, let's reactivate the driver assist. The BMW iX3 fixed all these parts very good. Okay, there's a car needed to take over. The last tricky curve here. Will it manage? I mean, it still ends up in the wrong lane, passing the midline. Now it gives me a symbol of a tricky part here, but still doesn't slow down. No, not even close. You see, this is the thing. The car doesn't know its own limitations until it's too late. But this is not unique for the Kia EV2. This goes for like 90% of the brands. I think it behaves good on highways too. It doesn't feel too small, it doesn't feel too wobbly or thin. It has a good presence, even at higher speeds. The road noise though, and some wind noise in the A-pillar is being more prominent above 100 kilometers per hour. So it's a bit noisy in these speeds. Maybe you can hear that in the camera. In slower speeds, still driving it very silent. In these conditions, not as silent. It doesn't have, of course, dual pane or insulation glass windows. So some of the noise comes through the windows, but mostly it feels like or sounds like tire noise. Maybe that can be because of the Hankook tires. If you set more premium tires on it, it may be slightly more silent. But the final result and the measurements, I haven't done those yet. I will explain those and reveal the results later in this video. So it's time to crunch some numbers. I have finalized all the tests, so let's start with the range and consumption test. 2 different cycles. We start with the mixed cycle of 80 kilometers with an average speed of 93 kilometers per hour. The final result ended up at 13.9 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers in 17 degrees Celsius, totally dry roads. That equals to a range of 289 kilometers. Compare that to the stated WLTP range of 307, we end up at 94%. And that can be considered really good. Even if this is a bit worse than I hoped for, it's still really good. I mean, the only cars that has been performing better with a lower consumption is the Renault 5 and the Hyundai Inster. And cars that comes close to this consumption in similar weather conditions is actually some of the MEB cars, but also, of course, the Model Y and the Model 3 from Tesla, very efficient cars. So 13.9 can be considered good. I was hoping for beating the WLTP range. Unfortunately, I could not do that. So let's move over to the 120 test, the highway test, where I keep a constant speed of 120 kilometers per hour. That's GPS speed, so 122 on the speedometer. The final result, 21.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That's actually fairly good, I would say, for the shape of the car. I was expecting it to be a bit higher because it's very flat. But that equals to 187 kilometers of a full charge. So 61% of the stated WLTP range. That can also be considered good, especially for this kind of a car. So decent highway range for such a small battery pack. So let's move over to the cabin noise test. I always place the microphone at head height at the passenger side and measure the same stretch of road in different speeds, 50, 70, 90 and 110 kilometers per hour. And this is the final result. I was hoping for a bit more of a silent car. Unfortunately, I can tell you that this is probably one of the most noisy cars I have ever tested. I think it's depending on the wheels. They feel a bit noisy because there is a lot of road noise from the tires, a lot of tire noise. And there's also plenty of A-pillar wind noise. A bit disappointing compared to rivals like the Inster, the Renault 5 or Renault 4, the BYD Dolphin. All of those are more silent than the EV2. I think that the noise comfort is really good when you stay under 70, but as soon as you hit highway speeds, you will hear the noise. But as I said, probably the tires is part of the problem here. The Hankook tires don't seem to be that silent, even if they should include some acoustic foam. Don't feel like they do that. Let's move on to the last and maybe one of the most important parts, and that's charging. 400 volt system, according to Kia, a peak speed of 115 kilowatts on a 150 kilowatt charger. I charged it from 6 all the way up to 80%. I preheated the battery pack and I hit a top speed of 118 kilowatts. You see the charge curve here. The total charge time according to Kia is 29 minutes. And I achieved a charge time of 28 minutes and 16 seconds. So that's almost 1 minute quicker than the stated time. That's good. That's good, despite having such a slow top speed. It kept it fairly good, but you see the tap rings are pretty clear. You see where it tappers to save the battery. But all in all, a okay time, I would say. I mean, 28 minutes, under 30 minutes, I consider as okay. And probably this is maybe not the car you take for very long trips. So you'll probably not charge it at fast chargers that often. But still, if you want to do that, you will be perfectly fine. So we went through all the details, the charging, the noise, the efficiency and range. We'll try to summarize the total view of the EV2, and I think this is a car that would work as a first car because all the practical aspects. The charging is okay because of the small battery pack. I mean, the top speed is not that good, but the curve finally is, I mean, under 30 minutes, 28 minutes of charge time. That could be considered as okay for this price class. What disappoints me is the cabin noise. What also disappoints me is the lack of driving with sunglasses on. That's really surprising. How can that even be possible today? They apparently didn't test the car with sunglasses on. Can that really be the case? Really surprising here. But other than that, I think this is a decent package. This is a car that can work as a first car for a small family or for two persons. I mean, you have okay range with the LFP battery pack. And my recommendation would be to go for the 4-seater setup because the flexibility with the back seat and the cargo space, and the LFP battery pack, so the standard range. Because in real life, the long range version won't give you that much more range because you only charge that to 80% most often. This one has almost the same amount of daily usable range when you charge it to 100%. So I would go for the standard range LFP pack and the 4-seater setup. I think that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hype it, subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, and most importantly, share your thoughts. What do you think about the EV2 and the results in this video? Stay electric. Thank you for watching. Speak to you soon.